Replacing your motorcycle's or dirt bike's brake fluid should be a regular maintenance item, just like oil changes. Over time, your brake fluid absorbs moisture and it breaks down, creating spongier brakes, and it allows the brake fluid to boil easier under hard use. You absolutely do not want this to happen, since you won't be able to get the most out of your bike, and in some cases it could put your safety at risk. Today, I'll be showing you how to flush and bleed your brake system at home for just a couple of dollars. Let's get right into it. First, let's take a look at what we'll need to complete this job. The essentials are new brake fluid of the proper specification, which I'll get into later, rags to clean up old brake fluid, a small wrench which will fit on your bleeder, a screwdriver, a small piece of hose, and an old bottle to catch your old brake fluid. Now that you know what we'll need, let's identify the brake components that we'll be working with. Your front brake has a master cylinder mounted up on the handlebar with a built-in fluid reservoir and your brake lever. Pulling that lever is how you build up brake pressure, but I'm sure you know that already. From your master cylinder, there's a brake line that runs down to your front wheel, where you have your caliper, your pads, and your rotor, and most importantly for this job, your bleeder valve. That's the thing under this black rubber cap. The back brake will have a very similar system, although the reservoir is sometimes separate and obviously stuff is placed a little bit different. To flush your brakes, you'll need to get all of your old fluid out. This usually should be done about every 2 years, but check your specific bike and your fluid to see what they recommend. To start, you'll need to set up a way to catch your old brake fluid. I'm using an old bottle with a hole in the top, just big enough for a hose, and this hose needs to snugly fit over your brake's bleeder. But before you go ahead and slip that hose on there, you'll need to get an appropriate sized wrench over your bleeder fitting. Now we could go ahead and slip the hose over the bleeder, and we're ready to let the brake fluid out. Now's a good time to point out that gloves are highly recommended, and that brake fluid can be harmful, so go ahead and read the recommendations for safe use that are on the bottle. And now you could go ahead and open up your brake fluid reservoir. Oftentimes, the reservoir will tell you what kind of brake fluid you need to use. You need to make sure that you're using the proper type of brake fluid for your system, otherwise you could have seals go bad and you're just going to have a bad time if you put the wrong fluid in there. And once you have the right brake fluid, you're ready to go ahead and start your flush. To do this, you'll need to squeeze your brake lever a few times and then hold pressure on it. While you're holding that pressure on it, you need to open up your bleeder valve to release fluid from the system. Then you'll need to go ahead and close up that bleeder valve, and once that's closed, you could release pressure from the lever. Do not release the lever until the bleeder is closed. If you do that, you could suck in air into the system from the bleeder itself. You'll want to go ahead and repeat this process, adding new fluid into the reservoir as it gets low. In most cases, you want to be careful to not let the reservoir run completely dry, since this is another way that you could introduce air into your system. In my case though, my reservoir was extremely dirty and full of debris, so I got all of my old brake fluid out and wiped it up with a rag. If you go this method, absolutely do not pull your brake lever while there's no fluid in there, because then you're going to be sucking air right into your system. Also, be prepared for a potentially more difficult bleed at the end of the job. Anyway, you'll want to go ahead and repeat this process until the fluid coming out of the system is a fresh, clear fluid, and it's not the old junk stuff that you're draining out of the system. Once your fluid coming out is clean, you'll want to feel your brake lever. If it's firm and feels great, then you're ready to top off your fluid and put your reservoir cap back on. If it's spongy, you'll need to continue bleeding your brakes. The key here is to ensure that your reservoir does not run dry at any point and that you don't suck any air into your bleeder. The process is going to be pretty similar to what we just did, and you really should use this process to start to avoid getting air into your system. You'll want to elevate your drain that's coming off of the bleeder, so elevate that hose so there's always a little bit of fluid right there at the bleeder to suck back in rather than air if any air were to try to get sucked back in. Also, you'll want to quickly open and close your bleeder so there's less of a chance of air coming back in through the bleeder and through the bleeder threads. Finally, don't bottom out your lever, just pull it, and while you're pulling it, quickly open and close that bleeder so you don't bottom it out, as this is another potential way that you could accidentally pull air into your system. Again, you'll want to repeat this process until your brakes feel great, and once they do, go ahead and close your bleeder for good. Then top off your brake fluid to the recommended level and reinstall your reservoir cap and bleeder dust guard. And congratulations, now your brakes are bled. Of course, you will want to keep an eye on your system for leaks, and you want to remember to flush out your system on a regular basis. Also, if you have a lot of trouble getting air out of your system, there are other ways to do this, like reverse bleeding, which is where you're forcing fluid up through the bleeder from the bottom up, which helps push air out, or you could use a power bleeder. There are other great videos on this, and this is just the most basic method that will work for most people most of the time. And to wrap up, that's it for this video. I hope you learned something here and that you enjoyed it. Please like this video if you did, subscribe for more, and stay tuned for the next one.